Okay. I hereby call this meeting of the Santa Barbara County Board of Education to order. Thank you. Or it just went right out of my mind. I'm obviously already out of order. And we will start today with a explanation of our interpretation facilities that we're providing. You would like to do that for us?
So, good afternoon. My name is Regina Santos Moreno, and I'm here with my colleague Hugo Santos, and we will be providing simultaneous interpretation for today's meeting. If you are here in person and would like to follow along in Spanish, we have some listening devices available, so please come talk to me. If you would like to follow along in Spanish on Zoom, please go ahead and follow the instructions that are available on there. As always, to all of our speakers, we would just like to remind you to use the microphone, speak at a moderate pace, and remember to speak one person at a time. Pues buenas tardes, mi nombre es Regina Santos Moreno. Estoy aquí con mi colega Hugo Santos y estaremos proporcionando la interpretación simultánea entre el inglés y el español. Si gustarían seguir la junta de hoy en español aquí en persona, por favor acérquense a mí, tenemos unos auriculares disponibles para que lo puedan hacer. Y si nos quieren seguir en Zoom, por favor sigan adelante a seguir las instrucciones que están disponibles ahí en la computadora para poder hacerlo. Como siempre, les recordamos a nuestros oradores que hablen uno a la vez, a un paso moderado y que recuerden de usar su micrófono. Gracias.
All right. Mr. Porter, would you like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
It would be my honor. Please rise. And as we get ready here, let's think about back to school and all those awesome kids who are excited to learn new things, but maybe just as importantly, the faculty and staff who will guide them through the next steps of their lives. So please join me as we salute our nation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Porter. And now, Ms. Friedland, would you like to do roll call?
Okay, Mrs. Carty.
Here.
Mrs. Daney is absent. Mrs. DeWord.
Here.
Ms. Ehrman. Here. Mrs. Frost.
Here.
Mr. Howell.
Here.
Mr. Porter.
And present.
Okay, thank you. I'll just count on that. I don't believe we have any changes to the agenda today, so we will move right forward with president and board comments. I just have a couple of events to mention. One of them is this Saturday night at Hancock, or late afternoon, early evening at Allen Hancock College in Santa Maria. We're celebrating our Hancock honorees, and Dr. Ann Foxworthy Llewellyn, Patty Boyd, and Tommy Shepard are the three individuals that we will be honoring on our 90th party, I guess you could call it. And so I'm looking forward to that event, and I think some others in the room might be attending. And then also we received a save the date for, and please do, for November 4th for Salute to Teachers, which will be at the Music Academy. And it's always a wonderful evening, so you might want to pencil that in. Okay, let's go on with board comments. Mary Beth? Nothing. Michelle?
Thank you. I have 3 items. First, I attended the Los Robles High School graduation, and I just this was at Los Prietos Boys Camp, and it was a wonderful afternoon, and it was wonderful to see this young man recover from his mistakes, and that he just had a bright future, and he had a big smile on his face, and he looked like he was just ready to go on, get on with his life. So I just also, what was more interesting as well is just the people that were surrounding him that were at the event, and in fact the officer that was there at the time of the arrest, he saw him in his his darkest time, and then he saw him at his brightest time, and he helped him through, and what a bond those two had. And it was wonderful to see. I just want to thank Director Renee Wheeler for for putting on this great event, and also just because of the people that were there, that you brought them all together. So thank you. And then the other, I'm going to I went to the Santa Barbara County Association of School Board meeting this morning. Mary Ellen Reese made an excellent presentation. This is a meeting for school board members within our county. And she just had a great presentation about mental health and mental wellness and the coordinated efforts that they're doing to bring um, the services to all of our school districts, including Cuyama, which I appreciate. And lastly is I'm attending tonight, starting tonight, is our executive committee member. As you know, I'm the treasurer for the for California Counties Boards of Education. We're having our conference this weekend. It's a CCBE conference. Tonight is the meeting, so it starts at 7 in Monterey, so I'm going to be heading up north. And we have a full schedule for this weekend. And also, just because it came up at the last meeting regarding the expenses that the board approved for attendance at this event, just full disclosure, I cover all of my expenses, my airfare, my travel, my registration fees. So there's no expense for me to attend these conferences and workshops at when I go. So just wanted to make that clear. Thank you.
Order. Nothing. Azra.
Yes, so I actually had the opportunity and pleasure of volunteering at the first annual Black Youth Summit that was hosted by Gateway Educational Services on Saturday, August 19th. And it was an all-day event that included students from all over Santa Barbara County. There were educational sessions for students and parents that celebrated identity, highlighted African American history and contributions in the region. And the afternoon provided classes in drumming, American Sign Language, dance, and visual arts, with a performance showcase at the end of everyone's group effort afterwards. And there was even backpack and book giveaways at the end of the day. And leadership, as well as board members from school districts in Goleta, Lompoc, Santa Barbara Unified, and SBCC attended, in addition to several community organizations. And the event was really impactful because in K through 12 education, African American students comprise less than 1% of the student population in the county. And with that small percentage, at times, some of the students may feel isolated, or it may be hard for them to connect or understand their importance or value in the larger community. So this event was a really beautiful way to bring the educational community together, to recognize and uplift these students, and instill in them the knowledge that they matter and that they have the support that they need to make the most out of their educational experience. So it was really uplifting and beautiful experience for me to witness, be a part of. My daughter attended, and I just really appreciate Gateway Educational Services for all they do in the community and for putting this event together. So it was really great to be there. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Joe. Nothing today. All right, then we'll move on with public comments, and we have a couple. Monet DeWitt.
Oh, now it is. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Board and Superintendent Salcido. I'm here actually to invite you to an event. My name is Moni DeWitt, and I, along with Sherry Ray, we have co-founded the Dyslexia Project. We have a resource center downtown that helps support and empower students with dyslexia as well as their families. And so October coming up is Dyslexia Awareness Month. We know that 1 in 5 is impacted, and it's a source of great success as well as avoidable struggles. And we have a series starting on October 5th, and I'll give you a handout so it'll make it easier for you. But we will be going through, there's several things we do at our center. One is that, it's very good to communicate ideas through art because it appeals to many people, and you get concepts of dyslexia and just how people feel about struggling with reading. And so we'll be showing our art ensemblage as well as a photographic series. And then on October 7th, we will be joined for some movies at the studio. And on the 12th, these are all Thursdays, we will be meeting with parents, educators, and community members. This would be a lovely one to have any of you come to, actually. And we would like to tell you more about dyslexia and how you can support the strengths and challenges in the classroom and beyond. And there are even some very simple practical things we can do by how we address dyslexics, possibly without using that word disability, but use difference, because it actually is just a neurological difference. Many people talk about neurodiversity. So that would be a cultural shift that I think we could do right away that would feel much more empowering to our youth. And I say that as a personal dyslexic, and also my son, having gone through our system. Sometimes it's just not, if you don't feel like the system believes in you, it's pretty hard to believe in yourself with, some natural challenges in the area of language. Anyway, sorry, 2 more here. On the 18th, we will have a panel, and you can hear direct experience from an architect, an educator, and a photographer, all successful adults with dyslexia who candidly share their stories of growing up, going to college, and managing in the workplace. And the final one is one with conversation, support, and information. We'll discuss how the Dyslexia Project can assist and support local needs regarding dyslexia in the everyday life of our community, including students, parents, and educators. And I might just add on a personal note, even here tonight, what board member DeWord was describing, Los Prietos, there is a disproportionate number of dyslexics who wind up in the juvenile justice system, partially because of truancy, also, other struggling people. But this could, with a proactive culture that has been tried in other areas and some things that we know works, we could turn this around and impact juvenile justice as well. And I might also encourage you all to look at The Independent, has Richard Ross in it this week, and he's been covering juvenile justice from a photography point of view. He's an outstanding photographer, and he also points loosely to this connection as well as other factors. But I would suggest that you look at his stuff, Juvie, and all of his images are very powerful. So more awareness on this issue can also result in savings. We can have 70% less people in special ed. That'll save you 4 times as much money, which can also allow you to try to get 90% literacy proficiency. So there's a lot of cool things out there, and we should be leading the charge. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have a public comment from Sherry Ray. Oh. Thank you. Thanks.
Good afternoon. There was major news out of New York last week when Columbia University announced that Lucy Calkins is stepping down, and the once prestigious Teachers College Reading and Writing project she headed is now being dissolved. The balanced literacy approach promoted by Calkins and others, like Fontes and Pinnell, has been widely discredited in recent years as more and more proof of the effectiveness of the science of reading has been widely disseminated and better understood. The science of reading is based on several skills that require mastery. They include phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, comprehension, and vocabulary, as well as background knowledge. Researchers tell us that 95% of students can effectively be taught to read in this way when neuroscience is respected and children are taught in the way their brains work. This is not, as it has been characterized by some, as simply a pendulum swing. This is the recognition that guessing at words, using photos or pictures as prompts, or believing in the joy of silent reading without teaching basic building blocks of language are not effective reading instructional approaches for the majority of students. Test scores and anecdotal evidence prove it. Rather, this is a recognition in the validity of the National Reading Panel in the year 2000 and a complete paradigm shift away from balanced literacy. It will affect how teachers are taught at the university level to teach reading and how they must adapt accordingly. That is profound. This news about the end of this program is extremely important in this county because of the reliance of balanced literacy as an instructional approach in the majority of our schools. For years, I have been outspoken here, here and elsewhere about the ineffectiveness of this balanced literacy approach and requested education leaders to make adjustments. I'm happy to report that those efforts have finally been successful, at least at Santa Barbara Unified, which is making the changeover to the science of reading beginning this fall. Other local districts are poised to follow their lead. I understand that it must be difficult for those in the education community to accept this change in approach, and it won't be easy. They will need support and leadership to learn a very different way to teach, as has been done in more than half our states where balanced literacy has been eliminated. I ask you, as leaders in education in our county, to take a stand that Santa Barbara County believes in the science of reading and will do everything possible to support this transition. The Los Angeles County Office of Education, for example, is doing a terrific job in providing resources, training, and leadership. In closing, I'd like to share with you the latest on the story I told you about a few months ago when I was here, about a then fourth grader who could not read and asked me for help. I wish I could tell you that this had a happy ending. He's now in fifth grade, a curriculum casualty of Lucy Calkins, reading below a first grade level. He's at 1 percentile. He's completely lacking in foundational reading skills. He cries every day before school and feels like, as he puts it, the dumbest kid in class. Remediating this child is going to take a great deal of time, expensive private intervention that his parents cannot pay for, and a good deal of emotional healing for him to gain the skills he needs and wants to have a successful life. It's going to take every bit of my advocacy skills to get him the help he needs and the willing hearts and minds to help remediate his plight that was caused through no fault of his own. Please consider him and so many like him when you look at the test scores and anecdotal evidence that reveals how far we have to go to reach 90% proficiency. The welcome resignation of Lucy Calkins has reverberated around the country. With your leadership, it can be just the beginning of a new age of literacy in our county as well. Thank you.
Okay, we have an action item, recommend adoption of the resolution regarding board member excused absence. Our superintendent is recommending that we adopt resolution 2402, excusing the absence of board member Maggie Dane at today's board meeting due to illness and acceptable hardship per board policy 9250. Do we have a second? And roll call.
Okay, Mrs. Gray. Aye. Mrs. Dewar.
Aye.
Ms. Ehrman.
Aye.
Mrs. Frost.
Aye.
Mr. Howell. Mr. Porter.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Motion passes.
And now I'm going to turn it over to Susan to introduce and start the presentation on positive behavior interventions and support, PBIS. Susan?
Thank you so much. I want to take us back to almost the end of the school year last year, and myself and Nadra Ehrman attended and visited 3 schools in Goleta Union School District with the superintendent, Diana Galinda Roybal. And while we were there, it was such a great, very fast tour. Literally just days before the end of school, we'll reschedule a different time to go a different time. But while we were there, Superintendent Roybal was talking about the positive behavioral interventions and support that they've implemented throughout Goleta. And Ms. Ehrman talked about at the board meeting about that visit and said, you know, I'd really love to have a presentation on understanding what PBIS is. So fortunately, in Curriculum and Instruction Division, we have Director Carla Benchoff is here today. Carla, if you wouldn't mind coming right to the podium. Carla Benchoff, Director of, let's see, we have it right here, Instructional Support. I'd love to share with you a little bit about Carla because she's here to share with us about PBIS. But Carla has been with us for 10 years. It'll be 10 years this September at SB CEO and was a teacher in many different places, but I'll say the longest tenure before coming here was in Santa Maria Bonita. Taught kindergarten, 3rd grade, 5th grade, taught at Allen Hancock College as well, and has almost for the entire time being here has been a steadfast, steady supporter of professional learning in Cuyama. So is a main person that goes to Cuyama every year. It's been about 8 years. Has supported Goleta with their PBIS training, so several years with Goleta. Has helped with the high impact tutoring at Hope School District, and worked on the multi-tiered system of support at College School District. And you've probably heard Maureen Donner talk about MTSS at College, and it's really gone out and supported other districts through her training. So I say that to say that Carla has been with us for many years now, supporting several districts. PBIS is one area, but other areas have to do with reading, literacy supports, early learning, the multi-tiered system of supports, history and social studies, social science, and the seal of civic engagement, just for a few. So today we're narrowing in on PBIS, but we could widen out for lots of other ways Carla supports in our curriculum instruction division. So Carla, with that, thank you so much for being here today and focusing on PBIS.
Well, thank you, Dr. Salcido, and thank you, board, for your interest in PBIS. It's my pleasure to be here today. This is something that I hold dear to my heart because I've seen the direct impact of positive behavior intervention supports taking place within the schools and the positive outcomes that come from that. I just wanted to, again, thank the board for your interest. And PBIS, it's a mouthful, and it's positive behavior intervention supports. Positive because truly what PBIS is focused on is the ultimate success outcome for students. Having that successful drive for them, that path for them, and the assistance that students need to get them there. Behavior, because truly behavior does impact academic success. Behavior impacts an education career for our students, and behavior impacts the environment in which all adults on campus and students live. And interventions and supports, because just as students need interventions and supports for reading, math, or science, students need intervention and supports for behavior. As adults, we need interventions and supports, sometimes learning how to drive, learning how to dance. My 93-year-old mother still gives me interventions and supports when it comes to ironing. So, yes, this is a lifelong commitment of PBIS. And when I, getting there we go. Pardon me. Well, that's okay. In beginning the design of this presentation, I broke it up into the what, the why, and the how of PBIS. So the what is what PBIS is, why it's important. And you know what? I think that, pardon me. No, it is, but I had it in a different order. So I'm not certain. Well, that's okay. So you have the what, the why, and the how? Perfect. Okay. So the what, the why, and the how of PBIS. Beginning with the what of PBIS, what is it exactly? It is a framework, and it is, the definition is there, an evidence-based 3-tiered framework to improve and integrate all of the data systems and practices affecting student outcomes every day. PBIS creates schools where all students succeed. So a 3-tiered framework. It is not a kit to purchase. It's not a gift with purchase. It's not something that is bought at a curriculum fair, but it is a framework because it is each school or each district designing the framework based upon their own data systems and practices and how those data systems and practices are, again, affecting the student outcomes. So on the right-hand side there, you see the quality of life for all students, staff, and families. When we think about PBIS and thinking about the quality of life, those features of quality of life that make it right, that make a school a place to be, what is that desired environment? Usually what comes to mind is that need for safety, that need for belonging, having basic needs met, a strong foundation, if you will, a strong place to stand, and clear direction. And when we're talking about PBIS, it's offering all of us that because it's directing us towards a clear path. It's grounded in strong research. It's been around for a long time. It was based from the University of Oregon, and the research here has shown that, again, guiding students, guiding children with positive acknowledgement makes greater gains for them academically, in life, and with their behaviors, because it's not a punitive system. It's recognizing the positiveness and acknowledging their positive behaviors. It's a 3-tiered response to behavior interventions. I'll get to that in just a moment. But basically, that 3-tiered response provides an easy path, a direct place for teachers to go. So teachers aren't left, administrators aren't left, adults on campus aren't left wondering, what do I do next? Where do I go with this student? There's a clear pathway there. And again, it's based on the systems, data, and practices of the school system. Right. I'm having struggles with this. So, can you excuse me for just a minute? Pardon me. Would you like us to switch out? Yeah. Should we switch out? Okay. Okay, I'm so sorry about this. It's okay, thank you. Oh, all right. All right. I'm just not sure what's coming next.
Right.
So that's why I'm a little off kilter. Yeah. That's okay.
Carla, may I share an anecdote with the board while we're waiting? When we were at La Patera Elementary School, it was recess time. And all the children were out playing, and some were at the handball courts, and some were at, the swings, and some were on the grass. And the principal and the superintendent we were standing all together, and they were really admiring the children at play. And we were too. I mean, it was just wonderful. And they said after implementing PBIS, so these tiers that we're going to hear about, their referrals to the office have been cut by 50%. 50%, which is huge. And so they've shifted the way they're supporting the children at recess and in classrooms when the behavior is a bit not as we desire. But because they're not referring students out to the office all the time, they're not missing the instruction either. So they're back in the classroom. So that was something that we said, wow, this is a real significant change in impact that isn't just a framework and we're thinking, what does it mean? But actually implemented makes a big difference. So wanted to share that anecdote.
This is perfect. This is the one I know and love. Yes, yes. Yeah. All right, so this is, I don't need to go back because this is just, again, unpacking what is PBIS. And so we start with the why, and this is where I left off. So in preparing for today, developing this presentation with the why, then the what, and then the how. And the reason for doing that is because the why is the most important piece, and the why is unique to each district, each school. The why, to me, sets up the journey. If we don't know why we're doing this, then the rest of it doesn't really matter. For the why, I appreciated this quote from Kelly Bartlett: "A child whose behavior pushes you away is a child who needs connection before anything else." And a driving force within PBIS is to make these connections, that adults make connections with the students on campus. Because again, with that connection, going back to what I said earlier about that quality of life, comes that feeling of safety, of belonging, and of being supported, much the way, Mrs. DeWeer, you shared with Renee about that young man that graduated. He had that connection with an adult as a mentor, as a model, who created an environment that they want to be in, that they want to stay in. And again, with this type of connection, it also impacts the quality of life for the adults on campus. So a desire for a better environment, those overarching features of the best quality of life in a school environment. Again, I mentioned this earlier, that idea of safety, of belonging, of a grounding, of clear communication, of knowing your goals. Having all of that in place increases student and teacher well-being, and I want to impact teacher well-being because this PBIS is not only for students, it's also for teachers because it involves the entire community and it sets up this positive environment within that school system. It's also important to point out that PBIS, I should have worn my t-shirt that says be positive. You're going to hear me say positive a handful of times and more so, but it's a positive system. It's not punitive. Gone are the days when a school adopts a PBIS and implements a PBIS framework. Gone are the days of a happy face, a sad face, and names underneath on the chalkboard. Gone are the days of 5 check marks next to somebody's name, or pulling the green card, yellow card, red card situation. It's about redirecting and having a teachable moment when a child makes the wrong choice or takes the wrong route, and at the same time, acknowledging what the right thing was to do at that moment. So it's always about teaching, and that's where that connection is made between the teachers and the students. So this is a lot about why began this PBIS journey. The what. What is PBIS? PBIS involves a lot of various pieces, but again, it's a system and a process to implementing PBIS in the school environment. So the what. It's a tiered system of support. It is, like I said earlier, it is a framework, okay? Not a gift with purchase. It is a framework because it sets up, it uses the data from a school, from a district, it uses the systems they have in place and the practices, and it takes a deep dive through the data to make sure that what is being done is the right thing to do. So we have a tiered system of support, which I'll explain in greater detail in a moment. And within this tiered system of support, it provides that pathway for adults on campus. It's proactive because it's looking at the data. It's not reactive. Where are we going? Why are we doing this? Because we know where troubles lie within our district, within our campus when it comes to behavior, because we've looked at the data. And again, it's built on that positive acknowledgement of students. Always going back to the positive. So within this tiered system of support, I just wanted to highlight and display the 3 different types of tiers here. There's the foundational piece that all students receive when we are teaching them their behaviors. And all students receive the same instruction, all students receive the same praise, there's same positive acknowledgement for their rights behavior, all students are redirected when things don't go quite right. Some students need a little bit more than that, just as I explained earlier. We all need our interventions and support to steer us on the right path. So some students will still receive all that we're getting within the foundational piece, but we add another layer on top. So here's our foundational piece. It might be another gentle reminder from an adult on campus. And some students still yet need the foundational piece, those reminders, and yet even higher, more individualized one-on-one with modeling and feedback and coaching happening for that youngster, for that individual. So it is definitely a tiered system of support with the cleared pathway set up for our adults on campus. I love this. PBIS is a redesign of the environment, not a redesign of the individual. What is meant here is that when we're looking at data, when data is being dissected and really focused on behavior, what tends to happen is that it's very apparent there's certain times of the day that many students are going to the school nurse. Okay, what time of day is that? What day of the week is that? And what's happening just before the school nurse is flooded with so many students? What is happening in the cafeteria? Why do we have a problem with so much trash in the cafeteria, so much noise in the cafeteria? What is happening that students receive maybe a note to the office, an office referral, after school, before school, during class, changing of classes? Okay, so what is going on within the environment that we can fix to then impact this individual. So it's a redesign of the environment, not a redesign of the individual. And Dr. Salcido, just as you mentioned, we saw less notes being sent to the office, right? We also collect and we see the qualitative and the quantitative side of this. When you enter a campus, sometimes you get that good feel, right? And that comes from adjusting the environment, designing the environment. It's quieter, it's calmer. So it's not a redesign of the individual, but it's looking at the environment as a whole, focusing on the data. Okay, so PBIS has 4 basic foundations. The first of those are universal expectations. Visiting campuses, you may have seen something like this behavior matrix on a campus. These universal expectations are what's expected from all students in different parts of the campus. So you see it there: classroom, cafeteria, restroom, playground, hallway, or bus. How is it that we're behaving appropriately in these different situations? And they're highlighted there. What do we expect students to do in the cafeteria? Clean up after yourself. Use a peaceful voice. Use good table manners. Use time to eat wisely instead of just shoving it down your face and running out. Walking in line. And then on the left-hand side, you see pause, because this particular school, they're the Panther Pause. So they took their mascot, they used an acronym PAWS for pride, attitude, wise choices, and safety to design their behavior matrix. Then this behavior matrix is taken and it's taught. It's explicitly taught within the context of where the behavior is expected. So if we're talking about playground, the playground expectations will be taught on the playground. If we're discussing the library, then the librarian will be responsible for teaching the expected behavior within a library. If we're talking about a bus, then the bus driver is teaching those expectations on the bus. So it's all adults on campus, all involved in setting these behaviors in place. Positive acknowledgement. Positive acknowledgement can happen individually with personal notes, but always identifying what it is. It's not just a token saying, good job, but it's thank you for picking up the trash from the floor as you left the cafeteria. Thank you for walking as you came onto campus to make sure we're not running into our little TKers. Thank you for saying good morning. Just basic positive acknowledgments that increase the positive activity that we're seeing. And lastly, restorative practices. So restorative practices is this opportunity to sit with small groups of students and hear from them the feedback. What do they think about the behavior matrix? What do they think about the positive acknowledgement system? Do they think it's fair? Is there a different way that they might want to go about teaching the expectations if we have a buddy system in place, for example? So it is that opportunity to get the feedback from the students and then continuously improve or redirect our efforts with all this feedback. This is a deeper dive into those various layers and tiered support. So you see those foundations that I just spoke of, the expectations for universal expectations for behavior, the teaching the expectations, that positive acknowledgement, and the restorative practices. All of those are that foundational piece that all students receive. But again, we all need that intervention and support in different areas. So some students continue to get those 4 foundational pieces within that green level, but they also may get what is you might hear on campuses, check in, check out. So if there is a student that is continuously having problems in the cafeteria, for example, okay, we're going to check in at the beginning of the day. Hey, Ellen, today when you go to the cafeteria, don't forget, take your tray, stay with your class, throw away your trash. All right, I got it. Thank you, Ellen. The end of the day, Ellen, how'd the cafeteria go? It was great. I stayed with my class. I took care of my tray, and I threw away my trash. Awesome. So that's an example of that yellow tier using the same behavior matrix. We're not expecting anything differently. It's just that general reminder. That third tier then affects a few students because they're going to receive what's in the green, what's in the yellow, and then that third tier may be in the cafeteria right there and then there is somebody saying, Ellen, don't forget to throw away your trash. Ellen, hold on to your tray. Ellen, stay with your class. So do you follow me? Okay, thank you. All right. Going back to it's always evidence-based, and this is how we are making our decisions for this tier that I just went over here. It is not a feeling or a gut of what a student might need. It goes back to the data. What are we seeing with this student with attendance? And then looking at it as a whole from the environment, is there a particular day where we have a drop in attendance? Is there a particular day where we have an increase in tardiness? Okay, going back to the data, how do we fix it? Lastly, the how. How does the school or district begin this journey? What do we need to do to assist? And how do they make it happen? So first it begins with communication. A school or district needs to inform their school community what is going to happen, where they are going, and why. So it's engagement with students and families, explaining in a student-friendly way about PBIS, why the school is embarking on PBIS, and then bringing in the family so that the families understand that this is a positive acknowledgement system and that the school is diving into different areas of the campus. And that way we have the family support. It's providing the information of what we're doing with our behavior matrix, how we're providing that positive acknowledgement system, and what we're doing to redirect if we reach into the second or third tier of assistance for students. It's setting up the foundations in that tier 1 and being very clear about expectations and the track that we're on. And always, always, always obtaining input and feedback from the entire school community. So it is truly the beginning of how to implement this is creating that supportive environment. We then move into determining a team. So you see a team may include naturally the administrator, a school counselor, psychologist, librarian, teacher representative, a community liaison, a paraprofessional. Many and all adults are invited to be part of a team generally, and it is their choice whether they want to be included or not. Most do. It's just that life situation, sometimes it doesn't happen. But in many of the schools that I've been a part of this implementation, the school has been well represented, again, by a playground supervisor, librarian, paraprofessional, a parent. And it's a team together and understanding their journey and going back to the very beginning with identifying the why. From there, the team then embarks on this self-assessment, and it's SWPBIS for school-wide positive behavior interventions and support, tiered fidelity inventory. This is a tool that schools use to measure where are we? Where are we as we start this journey? What do we need to pay attention to in regards to our teaming, in regards to our implementation of PBIS, and how are we evaluating our progress with PBIS? So it's a tool to use. It can be used over and over and over again, and it's a tool that's used within each tier. You'll see an example there of a school that the dark green is from May of 2022, and then the light green, May of 2023, and the progress that was made with their teaming, with their implementation, and with their evaluation. There was no evaluation in place at first, but because of this journey, now they've got these 3 areas in place for their tier 1. Beyond that is professional development, and just like what is happening with PBIS for the students, there's tiered support for the adults as well within the professional development. So there's definite teaming, there's professional development training, and there's coaching. An example here of how the professional development was designed as a 3-year process as the school starts its journey, focusing on that tier 1, the green, and then you see in the second box there, it moves up. Now we're still working, we're massaging our tier 1, but we're learning about tier 2. And lastly, we're focused on tier 3 for those supports. So it is just like that gradual implementation and offering varied levels of supports like we do with the students. The journey continues. The journey continues. When I think about PBIS, it's a true commitment because it doesn't happen overnight. You can't put an end date on it because constantly referencing, referring, reflecting, where are we going? How are we getting there? And are these changes resulting in the improvement within our vision and goal of PBIS? So it is a true commitment with this plan, do, study, act cycle constantly reviewing again the data. Are we improving, and are we striving towards those goals within our mission and vision statement? All right. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you.
Is this, I'm going to call it a methodology. Is this something now that's going to be in like student teacher training? Um, I mean, it seems to me it needs to be there before the teacher actually starts teaching so that everybody's on the same page. It would be difficult to have part of your staff in one place and the other part not knowing and understanding how this all works.
Behavior strategies are taught naturally for our beginning teachers and the teacher induction programs, but it is really a commitment with the school because
Okay.
everybody needs to be on the same path. Everybody's involved in the same why, so we have a clear direction. This PBIS is not something we can pull in from everybody getting some kind of different training or different reasons why, and then having success. So even though someone may come into a school or district where they had been implementing PBIS in the past, it's still an adjustment and a learning curve to be on the same path as the school they're currently in.
That's great.
Okay.
So it's specifically created and developed at a school site for that school, that faculty, that student body.
Correct.
Excellent. I've long been a believer in one size never fits all.
No, no, it would be a lot easier, but no.
It just doesn't.
La Patera and just seeing the success and referrals were down 50%, et cetera. So does that mean Toledo Unified system-wide has adopted it or individual schools? What's, from a practical standpoint, how is it being implemented out there?
Sure. Usually it's a district that wants to adopt PBIS, that wants to bring PBIS to the forefront, but then it's unique to each school. So La Patera had their own why, and so did El Camino. El Camino had their own why. Isla Vista has their own why. Why are they starting this journey? What is important to their staff and unique to their student population?
One more question. Anything new or different people will resist for any one of several reasons? What's the most consistent pushback you get when someone hears it, they think they understand it? There are a lot of different reasons not understanding, et cetera, but what's your experience for sort of the knee jerk, well, that won't work here because X?
That's a great question, and yes, been very much a part of that at many times. So the misunderstanding, I think, is that some adults on campus look at this as just like a token. Here you go. Good job, good job, good job, good job, good job. And side story is that happened to me as a classroom teacher when this was first brought up to me. And I thought, are you kidding me? One more thing to do? But then through more professional development and more learning and more practice on my part, it turned when I realized personally that students don't come in knowing the appropriate behaviors that are necessary on a campus. I can't assume that kindergartners understand to hang their backpack up on a hook. I have to teach them how to hang their backpack up on a hook. I can't assume that students know in the cafeteria the appropriate manners and what to do with their items once they're finished. I have to teach them that. So we start making that turn, but it is difficult when we have that strong pushback of not quite understanding and grasping that it's not it's about teaching. It goes back to what I said earlier. You know, we all need that direct instruction, and we all need that extra support. And when we can make that switch in our mind, then we're in.
I'm wondering, are there adaptations made for grades K-6 through 8? It seems like this would really be targeted to elementary. Is there a way to implement at the critical middle school years?
Yeah, primarily this is evident on elementary school campuses, but we see it in middle school when it's a K-8 campus. And then you'll see a little bit of difference perhaps in the behavior matrix and those behavior expectations, especially when personal devices come into play. That'll be part of the behavior matrix. But it's primarily on elementary campuses. It has a way of, like I said, getting in there to the middle school when it's a K-8 campus, and then it does sometimes make its way to a high school when the K-8 campuses around a high school have been implementing and using PBIS.
Well, first off, I just want to thank you for coming
thank you.
and presenting this information. I think it's very helpful for me, at least, to get that, you know, conceptual of how it's implemented and the different nuances. One thing that I really resonated was the idea of redesigning the environment and not the person, and that definitely speaks, even in like urban planning and architecture, you can design a space that will affect how people interact and connect within that space, and that is being explored more. And so when you mentioned that, it really resonated with that idea of designing a space, and in this case is designing the space for the behavior. So one of the questions that I did have about the integration of the design itself, because there's a lot of different elements of it, there's a lot of different stakeholders. You went over the elements that are involved, the design, the implementation. Can you speak to the time that it would take to take a school from initiating this process to the completion, the time, the schedule, the costs that are involved in making this happen?
Sure. So with Goleta, for example, this is my third year now working with the original 3 first school sites. And they obviously, based upon their data, are making vast improvements within that green and yellow tier. And then this year they're going to start that red tier for those a select few. So generally, I would say 3-4 years to really see it taking off and being in place and getting seeing the difference in the data. Cost, it can vary drastically between what type of professional development a district may seek. So that's hard for me to speak to. Right. And you asked another question. I'm sorry.
Basically the time and the schedule. So that you're saying about 3 to 4
about 3
years.
to 4 years. And thank goodness I've had the consistency of the administration within those sites. So that's been a bonus. Yeah.
And then just one follow-up question. Now that you're starting to see, you know, this implementation, have you seen any changes in the grades or any effect that PBIS has had on scores or grades for the students?
We're working on that, and that's on our agenda as we start with this year 3 of really honing in on what are we seeing academic-wise for the students.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
That
Thanks
was
for your
very
time. Thank
informative.
you. And again, your
Appreciate
interest. Thank you.
Okay. Dr. Salcido, would you like to tell us what you've been doing in the last month?
I actually don't even need to share it verbally. It's going to be right in your robust report. You can see what we've been doing this summer at SBCEO. Lots to report in all of our divisions. I did want to call out a couple of items in the superintendent's report to the board. First to say, under the SBCEO division's report, there's Administrative Services Division. Our Administrative Services Division, led by Steve Torres, has 3 major departments under it.
informational technology services, ITS, our internal fiscal services that supports all of our programs, and then our external financial support, school business advisory services. And the first item there speaks to our new SBAS, School Business Advisory Services Administrator, and he's here, Josh Becerra. Wanted to introduce Josh. Welcome, welcome, Josh. Josh comes from our special education division, works as a right-hand person for Kirsten Escobedo, and they are now shifting. So Josh is supporting under Steve Torres, and they're still friends. All of them are still friends. They still speak to each other. Josh, you want to say a word while you're here? Please come up to the podium and say a word or two.
Good afternoon. I just want to say I'm grateful for the opportunity to join the SBAS team. They're an exceptional group of people, and I'm happy to be leading them now. And I also would like to say I'm looking forward to continuing the exceptional service that SBCEO has become known for, and I'm so proud to be a part of this team. So thank you.
Thank you, Josh. Excited to introduce you. Secondly, the School Safety Coalition work. I wanted to give you an update. I'm really looking forward to actually joining Michelle at the CCBE conference. I'll be presenting alongside Monterey County and San Mateo County in the work, and they're much further ahead, and we're able to share about some of the evolving new work of the Santa Barbara County Coalition, Safety Coalition. And at your places is a flyer. This is not a public invitation because there are limited seats. So the invitation is for school teams as well as law enforcement partners. And I'd like to invite you, if you're able to attend, there are 3 dates. The first one is really around behaviors and threats and incident command, and you can see there the bullet points of some of the speakers. The second day is repeated, so there's 2 day 2s, same content for the first day as the second day. I say that I wanted you all to know that the first date actually, the entire Santa Ynez Valley has a valley-wide professional development day on the first date, and so they weren't able to attend. And we said, you know what? Let's not let that stop us. Let's create a second day for anyone else to attend. Plus, it'll be in the auditorium, limited seating, and we would like for our school and law enforcement partners to bring teams. So say that to say, please, if you'd like to, please do sign up. We'd be glad to have you. Not only glad to have you, but really am seeking our partnership in this coalition work, as we have worked with all of our school district superintendents. We've invited all of our private schools to be part of this, all of the course charter schools that are public schools, our early care and education preschools to be a part of this. And then we just recently went to the countywide law enforcement chiefs meeting, got all of their consensus to be a part of this coalition and adopt the standard response protocol that we will be discussing on day 2. So really excited to have all of their endorsement. Met recently with the chief of County Fire, who also is on board, the Office of Emergency Management, the County of Santa Barbara, CEO Mona Miyasato and I have met. I haven't met with all of the supervisors yet. But starting back down to the beginning pieces, one piece is the symposium. Second piece is to have common standard response protocol, which we will share more with you. And then third piece, just had first interviews yesterday for our school safety liaison, similar to our Susan K., our liaison for public health, but this will be our safety liaison. First interviews yesterday. We'll have second and final interviews next week. So there's 3 current columns going forward with the coalition work. And one of the aims that we have is to gather up more and more support, because what we don't want to do is duplicate any efforts, but we want to complement efforts out in the county. At the same time, have a cohesive vision for safety for our school communities throughout Santa Barbara County. So really excited about this work. So I wanted to invite you to be a part. And then one last thing before I turn it over, see if there's any other questions on page 7. I mentioned mindfulness for juvenile court and community schools. That had been actually a suggestion and recommendation and question coming from board member Ehrman. But next month, we will share as a presentation professional learning and professional development of our juvenile court and community schools. This will be a part, similar to what Carla presented for PBIS countywide school support. We'll talk about that kind of training for juvenile court community school next month. So let me pause there and see if there's any questions about anything in the report or things that you wanted to lift up. All right, thank you very much.
Very good. At this time, we'll move to the consent agenda then. And you can all review your agenda to see what's in the consent agenda. And I am looking for a motion to approve all consent items. Thank you. Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? The motion has passed. Now we'll move on to item 16. Oh, I did want to mention on item 15, thank you very much for circulating the note of appreciation. Yeah, that's great. To our most recent graduate. That's good. And Joe's got his. That's wonderful. Okay. Now moving on to action items. First, recommend approval of grant application for consolidated programs. The superintendent is recommending that we approve the submission of application to the CDE for the 2023-24 funding for consolidated categorical programs as listed. This application is submitted to the CDE once a year, so this is an annual item that we deal with. May I hear a motion to approve?
I move to approve.
Any discussion? Hearing none, I call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Number 17 is the recommended authorization to utilize a California Multiple Award Schedule, a CMAS contract. I would like to see if Mary Beth, are you here? Would you like to come forward? And if there are any questions about this item, or I think number 18, recommended authorization to utilize an OMNIA partners contract. Maybe Mary Beth can give us a little bit of clarification as to what these are and what they do and why we need to approve them.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm happy to answer questions also. In investigating the most cost-effective ways to secure routine purchased items like furniture, fixtures, flooring, equipment, we are familiar with these tools, these purchase agreements that are utilized by school districts and other government offices. We aren't obligated to use these tools if you authorize our use of them. It just gives us another tool to use when we're looking at the cost of certain items. So, currently for items over $15,000, we have to go out to public bid, and that's a considerable amount of time to go through before you can procure things. CMAS, Omnia, other sorts of buying agreements are approved by DGS for the state of California and for California agencies. They're pre-approved contracts that have been competitively bid that you are allowed to utilize at the local level for routine purchases.
Onto agreements and arrangements that have already been negotiated, which obviously would save us a great deal of time in making the procurement as well as not having to do that work.
Exactly.
Any questions? We'll take them one at a time. I'm waiting for a motion to recommend authorization of the utilization of a California multiple award schedule.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. And number 18, recommended authorization to utilize the Omnia Partners contract.
Move approval.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes. Number 19 is the California County Boards of Education General Membership Meeting and Voting Member. There is a general meeting of the CCBE on September 9th and on December 1st. And December 9th is in Monterey, and that's just day after tomorrow. And December 1st is in
San Francisco.
San Francisco. Okay. We are entitled to have a voting member from our board in attendance to vote at any actions that could come forward. It's not a requirement, and obviously we would only do this if someone is going to attend. We are very pleased that Michelle is on the board of that organization. As such, she cannot vote. She cannot be our voting member. So is anyone besides Michelle going to be attending either this weekend or December 1st? And perhaps, since none of us are going to be there, we will not have a voting member at those meetings. Okay, and so we're not going to further consider that motion.
Having said that, I have no doubt that Mrs. DeWord would be extremely vocal about anything that would be appropriate coming
Yes,
from our board. Yes.
exactly. And you will let us know so that we don't get left out in the dark. Okay, number 20. We were all here last month for the interdistrict attendance appeal hearings, and there was quite a bit of discussion about one specific having to do with what the heck were the boundaries for Goleta and Santa Barbara Unified. And I'm very pleased to see that we have a follow-up on that, and I appreciate that responsiveness because we were all very confused, and I think this is an excellent role for the county to serve, to come in when there's questions between districts to help resolve those. So what have we found out?
We have found out. Thank you. I will take the opportunity to once again thank the county board members for all of the hearing and receiving and deciding and acting last month. It's very emotional for all of the families and so important, and so I really appreciate it. One of the families resides on Stagecoach Road, and so you have a snapshot of a piece of Stagecoach Road, but even still, it's very, very windy and goes east and west and north and south. And there was a question that was posed about whether or not that portion of Stagecoach Road was in, whether it was in Santa Barbara Unified, Goleta, College, San Ynez High School. And so as follow-up, we wanted to make sure that we had clarity and that also that every district had the same information, that it just wasn't one said one and one said the other. So at this point, we have the definition and clarity. I bulleted those items on your attachment. But really what the need was there was a bit of a conflict of information on Goleta Unified's website. Mm-hmm. They had a list of addresses, and Stagecoach in the word said all Stagecoach Road was part of their district. But on the map, that was more, it was constructed more recently and meant to be more accurate, showed where it actually stopped on Stagecoach Road, because Stagecoach goes, like I said, very It's a very long and windy road. So they have decided to, and have done this already, they've removed their older list that's stating the names of streets and are using the map to show the exact areas. So that's what has been done, and we've communicated with all 3 districts. And there was also a question of whether or not all Goleta families who are in their attendance area then matriculate or go into Santa Barbara Unified. At the time it was stated, we don't think so, it isn't true, it might not be true. We confirmed with Goleta Union that they all do. So everyone in Goleta's attendance area then are allowed and are part of Santa Barbara Unified School District area as well. So I think everything has been, all the ends are tied, but I just want to make sure to answer any questions that you may have or other follow-up that you might request.
So
Sure.
school district boundaries is not our purview. It's that of the Committee on School District Organization, or the term something like that. The next time they redraw the boundaries, might it be possible for them to, and I know they employ some sort of geographic GIS kind of outfit, to try to draw the boundaries through very open and uninhabited areas, so that we don't wind up having one district on one side of the street, the other district on the other side of the street. And I'm not talking about elections so much, but the school districts themselves.
Right.
Because obviously that family, we put them through the ringer, and it didn't turn out well for them, and it wasn't their fault.
Right.
So maybe that's something you could bring up with the committee.
Happy to.
To just kind of think about that the next time they redraw their boundaries.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, and happy to bring that forward. We have a meeting in December. I believe it's the next one, so I can bring that forward. And that did actually happen for that committee, a Ballard address, and it was a Ballard next to Solvang address, and it was one single family that was just, the puzzle piece just didn't jive with or align with the rest of the block. So addressed it that way too. So yes, happy to. Thank you. And that's the end of my report.
Any other questions, comments on that? Information item of the personnel report, and at this time we don't have any future agenda items identified, but we can always add those when they come along. Okay. Sure.
For the future agenda, this is not necessarily an agenda item, but about a year ago we received the handbook for the county education office with all of the different roles and contact information, but it's since outdated, and so just wondering when that might come out again and when we could receive a copy.
You were talking about the SB CEO directory of programs. We're working on that right now. It's okay, making sure that I've got it. We're actually in the midst of working on some materials right now. So I don't want to say it will be done by our next board meeting, but as soon as it is done, we'll make sure that you have a copy.
I find the org chart version of that very, very helpful. I do,
good.
especially since we have so many new names.
Yes.
I mean, they're not new names, but they're in new places.
We do have
new names too.
That's true. We do have an updated, ever evolving org chart that we'd be happy to share right away.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Okay, then I am waiting for a motion for adjournment.
I'll move that.
Any second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion? Hearing none, I will call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're out of here. Thank you.